How to knit the tubular bind off. Hi everyone, Norman here. Today I want to show you how to knit the super stretchy tubular bind off. It creates an almost invisible edge for the 1x1 rib stitch, and you can also use it for the 2x2 rib stitch, and in this video I'm going to show you both versions. If you pair it with a tubular cast on, you get nice and neat mirrored edges on both sides. So let's show you how to do the tubular bind off. The first thing you need to do is you need to break the yarn, leaving a tail that is roughly 4 times as long as your project is wide. Be generous and rather err on the upper side. I mean, don't go like 10 times as long, but 5 times or so should be enough, and then thread the tail on a tapestry needle. Also, make sure that you end, if you're knitting flat, that is, that you end with a row where you have knit collar or a knit stitch as the first stitch. You could also do this with a purl stitch, but then you have to mirror the repeat, and maybe that will be a little bit more difficult for you. The repeat for the tubular bind off is remarkably easy, and if you already know the Kitchener stitch, then it's gonna be even easier because it's the exact same thing, only done on one needle. You can start with 2 preparational stitches. So the first stitch here should be a knit stitch with a little V here at its base, and you go into that purlwise. And the second stitch on your needle is a purl stitch, and you go through that knitwise coming in from behind. So you go in here in between those 2 stitches and get into that stitch knitwise. Those are just the preparation stitches. You only have to do this once, and some people prefer to skip those altogether. And now we can start with the real repeat, and it has 4 steps. So first, you go into the knit stitch knitwise and drop it. And the golden rule for this bind off is, if you went into the previous stitch knitwise, you go into the next stitch purlwise. And in this case, we need to go into the next knit stitch. Here, this is the next knit stitch. So we skip the purl stitch, we go into the knit stitch, and we go purlwise into that stitch. Here, the stitch on the next stitch is a purl stitch, and we need to drop it. And since it's a purl stitch, we drop it purlwise. So go into that purlwise, and you can drop it in the same breath. Pull tight. Then we need to go in the next stitch, and since we went into that stitch purlwise, we go into that next purl stitch here knitwise. So I feel it's actually remarkably easy to remember. So let's do that one more time. So this stitch is a knit stitch, and we always drop the first stitch. So it's a knit stitch, we go into that knitwise, and we drop it in the same breath. Pull tight and make sure that the yarn doesn't get caught here above the seam. Then we need to go into the next stitch and the next knit stitch, and since we went into that knitwise, we go into it purlwise. This here is a purl stitch, so we drop it purlwise, and this automatically means we need to go into the next stitch here knitwise coming in from behind. Let's do that one more time. So this is a knit stitch, we drop it knitwise, and then we go into the next knit stitch purlwise. This is a purl stitch, so we drop it purlwise, and then we go into the next purl stitch knitwise coming in from behind. Let's do that one final time. So knit stitch means you drop it knitwise and go into the next knit stitch purlwise, because you always have to alternate that. And then here we have a purl stitch. This means we drop it purlwise, and then we go into the next purl stitch knitwise, coming in from behind, and you can continue doing this until you reach the very end. And just as a little memory hook, why you go in knitwise and purlwise, well, here I've knitted this little swatch using very big needles, so you can see it a little bit better. So here we have one knit stitch, and you can see first you go in purlwise. Here this yarn goes in purlwise, travels all the way around, and then it goes out knitwise. And that's why you go into the stitch first purlwise and then exit it knitwise. That's what you are doing on the needle, and for a purl stitch it is exactly the other way round because it's the opposite side, right? Later on, and to speed things up, you can of course do the motions in the same breath. So you drop knitwise and go into that stitch purlwise and pull tight, and the same on the back needle. So you drop purlwise and go into the next purl stitch knitwise. That's always a little bit tricky, so make sure that you don't accidentally split the yarn, and then pull tight. So you can really do this in one breath, and I think it makes things a little bit easier. Again, make sure that you don't drop the yarn, and also make sure that you pull tight after every stitch so you get a nice and neat edge. And here at the very end you just continue with the exact same repeat as long as you can manage. So in this case my ribbing ends with a knit column because I want the same edges on both sides. So I just continue as long as I can, so I can drop this purl stitch knitwise, but I can't go into another purl stitch here, so I don't, and then I go into this stitch knitwise and drop it and finish it. Just continue the same repeat as long as you can manage, and then you only need to block things and you end up with a very nice and neat edge. If you did things correctly, this should be the result. So you get, if you did a tubular cast on, you will get mirrored edges. It will, at the start, it will be a little bit difficult to get the right tension for the tubular bind off. So I suggest before you use this for the neckline of your sweater or so, do a little practice swatch and see how tight or how loose you need to sew to get a nice and neat edge. And again, it will sort things out a little bit more after blocking. If you want to use the tubular binder for a 2x2 rib stitch, you can follow the exact same repeat with one single difference. Before you can do the tubular bind off, so in your last round or row, you need to convert your 2x2 rib stitch into a 1x1 rib stitch. So this is how it's going to work. So we start with a knit stitch here. And then we need to change the position of this purl stitch and this knit stitch. This means we need to knit a little mini cable. So insert your right needle into that purl stitch coming in from behind and use your thumb to press the knit stitch against the knitting needle. Then remove your left needle and pick up the knit stitch right away, and then slip back the purl stitch. And then you can purl it, knit it, purl it, knit it. So we are sticking to a 1x1 rib stitch. Now our next stitch is a knit stitch here again, so we need to do the exact same. Insert your right needle into the purl stitch, press the knit stitch against the knitting needle using your thumb, remove the left needle and pick up the knit stitch right away, slip back the purl stitch and purl it, knit it, purl it, knit it. One last time, insert your right needle into the purl stitch from behind, press the knit stitch against the knitting needle, pick it up right away and purl it like that. And in that manner you can change a 2x2 rib stitch into a 1x1 rib stitch, and then we can do the regular tubular bind off. And then we can start with the exact same repeat I showed you before, just for your convenience. So we need to do 2 preparation stitches. We go into the first stitch, which should be a knit stitch purlwise, and then we go into the second stitch coming in from behind, which is now a knit stitch, and going into it knitwise. And then our actual repeat starts just like before. Drop the first stitch knitwise and go into the second stitch purlwise from the front. Pull tight and then drop the purl stitch purlwise and then go into the next purl stitch knitwise from behind. So as you can see, it's gonna be the exact same repeat. One last time here. Drop knitwise, go into the next knit stitch purlwise, pull tight, and always make sure here that the yarn doesn't get caught here at the seam, on the seam, and then drop purlwise and go into the next knit stitch here knitwise. And sometimes it's better to do this in 2 steps because it's easy for you to split the yarn, and that's what you absolutely need to avoid, because otherwise your edge will lose all its stretchiness. So continue doing this until you've finished the whole seam in that manner. So it's the exact same, as I said, it's the exact same repeat. It's just that you need to prepare your edge to do that. If you did this correctly, this will be the result. So you will probably notice that you get these kind of slanting knit columns here, and that is normal. That is how this craft works. You can't achieve, at least not with this technique, you can't achieve this perfect transition that you can achieve for a 1x1 rib stitch. So here you always get these slanting lines, same for the tubular cast on. Still, a lot of people think this is quite pretty. Nevertheless, it's super stretchy on top of that, so why not use it? Anyway, that's how to knit the tubular bind off. Please like this video if you enjoyed watching, comment with your questions, and of course don't forget to subscribe if you don't want to miss any new videos. Happy knitting and enjoy the rest of your day!